The morning sun filtered softly through the tall glass windows of Camilla Raynor's New York apartment. The city buzzed quietly below, but in her penthouse, everything was still, almost too still. That was, until the doorbell chimed. Camilla, dressed in a sleek black robe, crossed the marble floor barefoot and opened the door to find a man in a sharp navy suit holding a polished silver tray. On it lay a single cream-colored envelope sealed with a gold crest, one she hadn't seen in nearly 5 years. The emblem of the Raynor family. Without a word, she took the envelope, her fingers brushing over the thick cardstock. Her stomach twisted slightly, not in fear, but in a mix of disdain and curiosity. After all, she hadn't heard a word from her family since she walked away from them years ago. Inside the envelope was a card that looked more like an award invitation than something meant to celebrate love. In ornate script, it read, "You are requested to arrive at 1:45 p.m. for venue setup. Please wear the uniform provided. Regards, the Raynor Van Doren Wedding Committee. No, dear Camilla. No, we hope to see you." Not even a generic guest printed above the message. Just instructions. She read it again, slower this time, but the message didn't change. They weren't inviting her as family. Not even as a guest. They were assigning her as staff. A laugh bubbled from Camilla's chest. Not loud or bitter, just a soft, stunned chuckle. After all this time, after everything she'd endured to survive and rise again, this was how they acknowledged her existence? As a server? She walked to her modern kitchen, dropped the invitation onto the counter, and poured herself a coffee. As she stirred, her reflection in the glass backsplash caught her eye. Her brown eyes, sharp, alert, unyielding, looked back at her with an expression that surprised even herself. She wasn't hurt. She was amused. Because what her younger sister and the rest of her pompous, performative family didn't know was this: the entire wedding they were preparing to celebrate, the lavish garden venue, the imported floral arrangements, the Michelin star chef menu, had been paid for by Camilla herself. Silently. Anonymously. They didn't know about Camilla's success. They still believed she was floundering, broke, maybe even desperate. That was the only narrative they had ever accepted, and they clung to it like a comforting lie. To them, Camilla had failed when she turned down a trust fund to start a digital hospitality company. She was lost when she didn't marry into politics or high finance like her sister Helena. Helena. The bride. The golden girl of the Raynor family. The Ivy League valedictorian. The networking genius. The social media darling. The woman who had done everything right. And now she was marrying into old European banking money, Jonas Van Doren, the blonde-haired, blue-blooded heir to a dynasty of investment power. Camilla sipped her coffee slowly. She couldn't help but admire the dramatic poetry of it all. Helena thought Camilla was insignificant enough to be assigned as a cater waiter for her grand society wedding. But what she didn't know was that every luxury Helena would be parading around that day was funded by the very sister she once called a disgrace. Camilla could have declined. She could have ignored the invitation, or even thrown it out. But no. That wouldn't do. She picked up her phone and dialed a direct line. "Good morning, Miss Raynor," her assistant Rachel answered. "I need you to make a call to the event coordinator for the Raynor Van Doren wedding." Rachel paused. "The one you're secretly funding?" Camilla smirked. "That's the one. Tell them the anonymous sponsor wants to implement a few modifications to the event plan." "Any specifics?" "Oh yes," Camilla replied, her voice cool, calm, controlled. She opened her laptop and pulled up the detailed blueprints of the venue. But nothing too drastic. Just some subtle reminders. Reminders? Camilla's smile widened as she gazed at the beautiful mock-up of the wedding: gold-rimmed tables, an aerial floral canopy, custom-carved ice sculptures. Reminders, she repeated, that even a Raynor must answer to the hand that pays the bills. That night, Camilla stood at her floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city skyline. In the reflection, she no longer saw the forgotten older daughter, the embarrassment of a prestigious lineage. She saw the woman who had built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch, who employed hundreds, who quietly became the power player her family never saw coming. The next morning, she rose early, dressed deliberately in the standard server's uniform detailed in the invitation: black dress slacks, a stiff white shirt, and a gray vest. She added a touch of lipstick, just enough to look presentable, and tied her hair in a low bun. She didn't bring a clutch, didn't wear jewelry, didn't show off even an ounce of the wealth she now controlled. Instead, she took a private car to the estate. The venue was a converted French chateau in the Hudson Valley, dripping with grandeur, the sort of place the Raynors once could have afforded, but now, only through someone else's generosity. She arrived at exactly 1:45 p.m., as requested. The chaos of last-minute preparations filled the air. Staff rushed about with trays and tablecloths, florists strung orchids over trellises, and coordinators barked orders through headsets. As Camilla stepped through the gates, clipboard in hand, one of the wedding planners jogged over, slightly out of breath. "Oh, thank God. You're with catering, right? We're behind on glass placement," and, she paused, her gaze sweeping Camilla's face. Recognition dawned. "Wait. Are you?" Camilla gave a polite nod. "Camilla Raynor. Sister of the bride." The woman's expression twisted into panic. "Oh. I didn't realize." Camilla held up a hand. "Don't worry. I'm here to work." Her tone was pleasant, but firm. "Just make sure the final list of changes sent in by your anonymous sponsor are followed to the letter." The woman nodded, clearly rattled. Camilla handed over a folded document with updates that seemed harmless on the surface: name placements, lighting angles, seating shifts. But embedded within them were calculated details: a slideshow cue, a music change, a toast adjustment. Little seeds, ready to bloom. As she walked into the main hall and surveyed the breathtakingly excessive decor, white roses cascading from crystal chandeliers, golden cutlery at every place setting, and embroidered velvet linens, Camilla let out a slow breath. Let them play their roles. Let them bask in borrowed brilliance. Because soon, the curtain would rise, and the story would change. Not for her. For them. The estate was a masterpiece of illusion, every inch radiating opulence and charm. As the event staff buzzed around setting tables and adjusting flower arrangements, Camilla wove through the chaos like a shadow. No one paid her much attention, and that was exactly how she liked it. The main ballroom shimmered under massive chandeliers, each one imported from Italy. Golden ribbons spiraled down from the ceiling, framing the arched windows with elegance. It looked like something out of a fairy tale, and Helena would be at the center of it all, just as she'd always been. Camilla passed through the grand hall and into the side corridor where the bridal suite was located. She paused at the open doorway, listening. Laughter spilled out into the hallway, light, performative, and familiar. Inside, Helena stood in a designer gown of ivory silk and hand-stitched lace, a crown of tiny pearls adorning her perfectly curled hair. Bridesmaids fluttered around her like butterflies, adjusting her train, fluffing her veil, complimenting her every movement. "Helena, you look like a queen," one of them gushed. "I should," Helena replied with a smirk. "This day costs more than most people make in a year." Camilla raised an eyebrow, amused at the irony. She leaned just slightly into view, and as expected, Helena's gaze caught hers in the mirror. The reaction was immediate. Her sister's smile froze, then twisted with thinly veiled contempt. "Camilla," Helena said, turning slowly. "Is that the uniform?" Camilla glanced down at her pressed white shirt and black slacks. "I followed the dress code." Helena's eyes glittered. "Of course you did. Wouldn't want to stand out." Camilla tilted her head. "No, wouldn't want that." The tension in the room thickened as the bridesmaids exchanged confused glances. None of them knew who Camilla really was. Helena had erased her so thoroughly from her social life that most of them probably assumed she was a distant cousin or a wedding assistant. "Try to stay out of the way," Helena said, smoothing down her dress with surgical precision. "We have important people arriving." Camilla smiled politely. "Of course. I'm just here to serve." Helena nodded once, as if that settled things, then turned back to her mirror. Camilla lingered for a second, her gaze tracing every inch of the bridal suite. She spotted a chilled bottle of vintage champagne on a marble side table, one that had been flown in from France at Helena's request. She had personally signed off on that invoice. A small, quiet victory. With that, Camilla stepped away, her thoughts already shifting back to her plan. The guests began arriving by late afternoon, filtering through the grand entrance in waves of luxury, designer gowns, tailored tuxedos, Rolex watches glinting in the sun. It was a curated crowd of socialites, old money families, European aristocrats, and corporate titans. Camilla moved among them with grace, invisible in plain sight. She offered drinks, adjusted silverware, refilled wine glasses, all the while scanning the crowd. She spotted her parents near the fountain in the courtyard. Her mother, Vivian Raynor, wore a deep emerald gown and a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her father, Edward Raynor, stood with a whiskey in hand, trying too hard to appear at ease. They looked every bit the picture of prosperity. But Camilla knew the truth behind the tailored suits and diamond accessories. Their empire was crumbling. Vivian caught sight of her and, without recognizing her, extended an empty glass. "Another, please," she said dismissively. Camilla took the glass with a slight bow and murmured, "Yes, ma'am." But as she turned to walk away, she heard her mother's voice falter. "Wait." Camilla turned back, slowly. Vivian's gaze narrowed. "Camilla?" Her father looked over next. His eyes widened, but not with warmth. "What the hell are you doing?" Camilla gave them both the same neutral smile she used on actual catering clients. "Working. Just like you asked." "This is a mistake," Vivian said, suddenly flustered. "You shouldn't be here." "But I am," Camilla interrupted, still composed. "And don't worry. I won't cause a scene." Her father's jaw clenched. "Helena said you were being difficult, refused a regular invitation." Camilla's laugh was quiet and sharp. "You mean refused to be degraded as a servant at my own sister's wedding?" Vivian stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You're embarrassing us. There are important people here. You can't just walk around like this." Camilla met her mother's cold gaze and, for the first time, felt nothing. No ache. No need. Just distance. "Don't worry," she said again, "no one's paying attention to me." Then she turned and walked away, leaving them stunned. Inside the ballroom, the setup was complete. The lighting had been adjusted, soft and warm to contrast the chill that would come later. The projector had been positioned discreetly on the mezzanine. The playlist had been loaded with a new final track. All of it, every final detail, was ready. Camilla gave a small nod to Rachel, who had been posing as a logistics runner on site. Rachel nodded back. Everything was in place. By the time the ceremony began in the garden, Camilla was already inside, watching from behind a curtain as her sister walked down the aisle to a chorus of delicate strings. It was beautiful, cinematic, almost unreal. Helena and Jonas stood beneath an arch of roses and eucalyptus, exchanging vows under the golden light of sunset. The guests sighed and smiled. Some even cried. Camilla didn't. She knew what came next. As the reception began and glasses clinked and toasts were made, she could feel the weight of years bearing down on her, the years she spent cast aside, belittled, dismissed. They had treated her like a shadow, a mistake. And now, in front of everyone they had spent their lives trying to impress, the curtain was about to rise on a very different show. One where Camilla Raynor didn't play the forgotten daughter. One where she was the producer, director, and star. The reception hall looked like it belonged on the cover of a luxury lifestyle magazine. Soft golden light washed over gleaming champagne flutes, centerpieces overflowing with peonies and orchids shimmered with dew, and a live quartet played a delicate instrumental version of a love ballad. Guests glided between marble columns and satin-covered chairs like swans on a lake of silk. Camilla moved among them like a phantom. She wasn't part of the glittering scene, but she was the architect of it. The catering staff circulated efficiently, trained to perfection under the management company Camilla had discreetly hired for the event. The wine flowed, the hors d'oeuvres vanished from silver trays within moments, and every detail whispered luxury. It was exactly what her sister wanted. And exactly what she was about to unravel. Rachel, dressed in a standard staff uniform, slipped beside Camilla near the banquet kitchen doors and whispered, "Mic's ready. Projectors set. The playlist is updated. Your go at the second toast." Camilla gave a single nod. "Perfect. Wait for Jonas to finish his speech. Then signal Patricia." Rachel hesitated. "You sure about this? You can still back down." Camilla's gaze swept the room, her mother laughing too hard at some socialite's joke, her father pretending to understand crypto trends to impress a banker, Helena holding court at the main table like royalty. "Back down? No. Not now. I've waited 10 years for this moment," Camilla said, her voice like velvet wrapped around a blade. "I'm not backing down. I'm taking back the narrative." Dinner was served, aged steak with truffle mashed potatoes and imported asparagus. Every fork clink, every laugh, every camera flash added to the illusion of a perfect night. Then Jonas rose from his seat. Camilla watched from the shadows near the bar as he raised his glass and smiled at the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice polished, "thank you for being here today. Helena and I are honored to share this beautiful moment with all of you." Applause followed, polite and warm. "I also want to give special thanks to my in-laws, Edward and Vivian Raynor," he continued. "Their generosity and taste made this day unforgettable." More applause. Helena dabbed fake tears from the corner of her eyes with a monogrammed napkin. Her parents smiled proudly, feeding off the attention. And of course, Jonas added, lifting his glass, to my beautiful wife, Helena. This day is a dream, and you made it happen. The orchestra swelled behind his words. The room shimmered with adoration. Camilla gave Rachel a slight nod. The signal. Patricia, the wedding coordinator, slipped behind the control panel and dimmed the lights slightly. A soft chime rang out across the room as the background music paused. And then, from the shadows, Camilla stepped forward with a microphone in hand. The quiet that fell over the crowd was instant, like a spell being broken. Camilla stood still for a second, letting her presence sink in. She wasn't in a gown. She wasn't at the podium. She wasn't framed in spotlight. And yet, every eye was on her. I know you're expecting the second toast, she said smoothly, her voice amplified through the speakers, but I'd like to say a few words first. Don't worry, it'll be memorable. The guests glanced at one another, murmurs rippling like a breeze through silk. Helena turned pale. Camilla gave her sister a charming smile. Hi, Helena. I followed the dress code. Hope that's okay. The mic picked up a few surprised laughs, nervous, unsure. Some of you might not know me, Camilla continued. I'm Camilla Raynor, Helena's older sister. Some of you might be wondering why I'm dressed like the staff. That's because I was staff, according to my invitation. A wave of confusion passed through the audience. I arrived early. I helped set tables. I refilled your drinks. I passed canapes to people who didn't even look at me. Now the murmurs became whispers. But here's the twist, Camilla said, pacing slowly in front of the stage. This wedding? This venue? These chandeliers, the imported linens, the 5-course menu? It was all paid for by me. The ballroom froze. Literal silence. I funded this entire event, Camilla said, louder this time. Not my parents. Not Helena. Me. The same person they erased from family photos. The same person they called a failure. She pulled a small remote from her pocket and clicked. Behind her, a massive screen flickered to life. The slideshow began. Receipts. Wire transfers. Catering contracts. Floral invoices. All with her signature. I built a hospitality empire from the ground up, Camilla said, her voice calm. While they pretended I was living in a shoebox apartment, I was buying properties. While they funneled money into Helena's failed fashion app, I was growing my brand. She turned toward the head table. And when your credit cards maxed out, when the family name stopped meaning guaranteed wealth, guess who you reached out to, indirectly, through your wedding planner? She paused. I knew you wouldn't recognize my name on paper. I knew you'd take the money and run. And I let you. Because I wanted this moment. Helena stood suddenly, knocking over her champagne flute. This is a lie, she shouted, her voice trembling. She's making this up. Camilla turned slowly. Really? She clicked again. The screen showed a signed sponsorship form, the one filed through a shell company, the one Helena had begged to approve the wedding costs. Her sister's face crumpled. You asked an anonymous donor to pay for your fairy tale, Camilla said. You just didn't know the fairy godmother had claws. The unraveling happened fast. Guests started whispering louder, their attention no longer on the flowers or string quartet, but on the stunned expressions of the Raynor family. Businessmen looked at Edward with doubt. Socialites stared at Vivian as though she were suddenly pedestrian. Camilla turned to the crowd once more. I don't say all this for pity, she said. I say it because it's time you knew the truth. That behind the glitz, the Raynor name is just that, a name. One that means nothing without someone like me holding it up. She clicked the final button. Vendors across the estate received a text. The payment had been revoked. Within seconds, the dominoes fell. Catering staff began clearing plates mid-meal. The florists started packing up arrangements. The quartet stopped playing and began packing their instruments. Guests watched in shock as servers rolled carts through the aisles, lifting half-eaten lobster tails and pouring champagne back into buckets. Even the candles were snuffed out, one by one. It was a visual collapse, graceful, deliberate, devastating. And Camilla? She stood at the center, untouched, composed. A ghost no longer. The ballroom once shimmered like a cathedral of excess. Now, it crackled with tension, the gilded facade peeling back to reveal raw panic beneath. As Camilla lowered the microphone and stepped away, the chaos behind her unfurled like a perfectly orchestrated opera in collapse. One by one, The orchestra members packed away their instruments in silence, their sheet music fluttering like white flags on the stage. Candles were snuffed out without ceremony. Waiters, once floating like ghosts among the tables, moved with urgency now, clearing entrees, boxing untouched desserts, uncorking nothing further. Gone was the glamour. In its place, confusion, disbelief, and slowly, shame. Camilla moved through the room slowly, deliberately, letting each stiletto heel strike the marble floor like a countdown to doom. Her mother, Vivian, stood rigidly near the head table, clutching a napkin as though it could stop her world from unraveling. Her painted lips parted slightly, but no words came. Her father, Edward, had gone red in the face, veins taut in his neck, his wineglass trembling in one hand as if debating whether to throw it or drink until this nightmare blurred away. Helena, the princess of the evening, was unraveling before their eyes. "No, no, no," she whispered, stumbling out from behind the sweetheart table. "Stop packing up. This isn't part of the schedule." She tried grabbing one of the florists, who pulled her imported orchid arrangement off a pillar without flinching. "Don't touch those," Helena shrieked. "Those are mine. They're part of the vision." The florist didn't respond. She had her instructions. And her final payment had just been revoked. Camilla watched, arms folded, as her sister spun in place like a puppet with tangled strings. Her gown, once ethereal, now looked gaudy under the room's fading light. "You did this!" Helena screamed, turning on Camilla, hair unraveling from its pins, cheeks splotched with emotion. "You jealous, bitter." "I funded this," Camilla replied coolly. "And now I'm reclaiming my investment. You can't just ruin it." Helena's voice cracked. "This is my wedding." Camilla stepped closer, her voice low, controlled, devastating. "You invited me to serve hors d'oeuvres. You humiliated me to make yourself feel superior. But the whole time, you were walking through a fantasy I built, and you didn't even know it." Helena's chest heaved. "You were nothing. You left. You abandoned this family." "No," Camilla said calmly. "This family abandoned me. You erased me the moment I stopped fitting the narrative. You called me a disappointment when I didn't marry a stockbroker or join Dad's failing firm. You never once asked how I survived." The guests watched, transfixed. They weren't leaving. They couldn't. Not now. Across the room, Rachel clicked her tablet, and the slideshow returned. This time, it showed news clippings, subtle and damning. Raynor family assets quietly sold off amidst rumors of insolvency. Anonymous hospitality group acquires five-star resort in Aspen. Raynor Enterprises suffers third straight year of losses. Guests shifted in their chairs. A prominent hedge fund manager excused himself, pulling out his phone as he walked briskly toward the exit. Camilla turned toward her father. "I wonder," she said, "how many investors in this room are rethinking their loyalty to Raynor Holdings?" Edward's mask cracked. "You vindictive little brat." She cut him off with a quiet, dangerous smile. "No more pretending, Dad. The company's dead. The empire is dust. And the only thing holding this illusion together," she gestured to the decaying wedding hall, "was my money." Vivian's voice cut through the silence. "Please. We can fix this." Camilla turned. Her mother's voice was no longer sharp. It was small. Pleading. Vivian took a tentative step forward, her heels clicking like a metronome counting down something irreversible. Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "I know we made mistakes," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "But we're still your family." Camilla tilted her head, considering that word. "Family?" she echoed. "Funny. You only use it when you want something." Vivian's lip trembled. "What do you want? Money? Position? Public apology? Just tell us." Camilla took one slow step forward until she was only a foot away. "I wanted your respect," she said, voice breaking through the room like a glass shattering. "I wanted a seat at your table. I wanted you to be proud of me. But you were too busy polishing Helena's crown to see the empire I was building." Her mother lowered her eyes, her chin trembling. "So no," Camilla whispered. "There's nothing you can give me now. Because I've already taken back everything you stole." The unraveling didn't end in the ballroom. Over the next half hour, guests trickled out with hurried goodbyes or avoided eye contact altogether. Whispers of lawsuits, ruined reputations, and lost money trailed behind them like the train of Helena's forgotten veil. Outside, the manicured estate lawn was scattered with half-emptied flutes and melting ice sculptures. A string of lanterns flickered out one by one. Camilla walked out into the cool evening, calm, collected. Behind her, Helena screamed at someone to put the cake back. While Edward argued over the phone with a lawyer, and Vivian sobbed quietly in a corner. And Camilla? She simply got into her car, pulled the door shut, and exhaled, like letting go of a lifetime of weight. Rachel sat beside her in the back seat, watching her. "You okay?" Camilla gave a tired smile. "Better than okay. Think they'll recover?" She looked out the tinted window at the collapsing grandeur behind her. Not from this. 1 year later. The air in Camilla's penthouse was filled with the scent of fresh lilies, her favorite. A quiet breeze pushed through the partially open balcony door, rustling the sheer curtains like whispers of the past. Manhattan glittered below, unaware uncaring of the family legacy Camilla had watched implode exactly 12 months ago. She sat at the edge of a velvet chaise, barefoot, her silk robe loose around her shoulders. In one hand, a glass of Bordeaux. In the other, a tablet glowing with headlines. Raynor Holdings officially files for bankruptcy, court records reveal years of hidden debt. Former socialite Helena Raynor Van Doren divorced amid financial scandal. Anonymous donor behind Raynor wedding identified as self-made hospitality tycoon Camilla Raynor. Camilla sipped her wine and let the flavor rest on her tongue like a well-earned victory. They never saw it coming. They'd built walls of delusion so high, they couldn't see the storm until it tore their house down. And now, she stood alone. Not in exile, but on a throne of her own design. After the wedding debacle, Helena had vanished from the public eye. The whirlwind romance with Jonas ended in a quiet annulment only 4 months later. Rumors swirled about irreconcilable financial lies. Jonas returned to Switzerland, his family eager to sweep the American mess under a Persian rug. Vivian and Edward tried damage control. Press releases, private apologies, even feigned illnesses to stall creditors. But none of it worked. Their empire had always been hollow. And Camilla had simply turned on the lights. Her phone buzzed beside her. Incoming call, Helena. She stared at it. The name looked foreign now, like a contact left in your phone long after someone was gone. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened the last message Helena had sent 2 months ago. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance. I'm struggling. If you have any job openings, I'll take anything. Even front desk." Camilla had replied with nothing but a link to the HR application portal of her hospitality chain. A generic form, just like any other applicant. Helena never followed up. Camilla took another sip of wine, then turned her gaze to the sprawling skyline. Dozens of lights blinked at her from the high-rise towers, some of them buildings she now owned shares in. A far cry from the girl who once slept in the back office of her first failing boutique hotel. She had built her company, CR Hospitality and Lux Group, from a one-property startup into a coast-to-coast empire of luxury hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants, and curated travel experiences. Investors once blind to her name now begged to work with her. And she did it all without the Raynor name propping her up. In fact, the day she dropped it publicly, changed her branding from Camilla Raynor to just C. Raynor, the world noticed. Not because of the name, but because of the work. Sometimes, late at night, she still thought of them, her family. Not with longing, not even anger. But with clarity. She remembered birthdays that passed unnoticed. Recitals no one attended. Business milestones that earn only silence. She remembered begging for approval that never came. But most of all, she remembered the invitation, the one that told her to arrive for setup, and to wear the uniform. That memory had once felt like acid. Now, it felt like fuel. Camilla moved to her grand piano, set her wine glass down, and played a soft melody. Not for anyone else, just for herself. Midway through the piece, her assistant, Rachel, stepped into the room with a quiet knock. "Sorry to interrupt. Just a few updates." Camilla nodded without stopping. "Your Forbes profile went live. And Vanity Fair wants a full feature next quarter. Also, you've been invited to speak at the Global Women in Power Summit in Geneva." Camilla lifted her hands from the keys. "Send them my travel schedule," she said. "Tell them I'll attend. But only if they book me the opening keynote." Rachel smiled. "Already done." Camilla returned the smile faintly. "What about the new acquisition?" "The Palm Springs resort is secured. Paperwork's signed. Also, the new chef from Paris just arrived at our Miami property. Early reviews are already stellar." "Good," Camilla said simply. Rachel lingered, then added more gently, "There's one more thing. Your father's attorney contacted us. He's in poor health. Asking if you'd be willing to visit. Camilla looked out the window again. What did you tell him? I said I'd ask. There was a long silence. Then, Camilla turned. Tell him no. But send him a complimentary stay package for our Oregon retreat. He's not entitled to my presence. But he can enjoy the peace I built. Rachel nodded and slipped away. Camilla returned to the piano, but didn't play. Instead, she stood and crossed to her bookshelf, lined with travel guides, interior design portfolios, and hardcover editions of business strategy books with dog-eared pages. She pulled one slim photo album from the very bottom shelf, her album. Not the curated one her family kept, with her photos conveniently missing. This one held her. Her in front of her first hotel. Her signing her first contract. Her crying alone in a restaurant kitchen after losing everything in a bad deal, and then getting up and trying again. She closed it with quiet satisfaction. These were the memories that mattered. Later that evening, she logged into her private social platform account and posted a short message under her anonymous username. 1 year ago today, I took back my power at my sister's wedding. Since then, I built more, earned more, and felt more than I ever did trying to please people who never saw me. To those from toxic families, you owe them nothing. You deserve peace, respect, and freedom. And if you have to walk through fire to find it, don't hesitate. Let it burn. Within hours, thousands of likes, reposts, and private messages poured in. Some were survivors like her. Some were still trapped, looking for a map. Camilla didn't respond to all of them, but she read every word. And for each one, she felt less alone. The next morning, she woke early, dressed in her favorite navy blazer, and stepped onto the rooftop of her newest high-rise hotel. From up here, the city looked small. And she? She looked like a woman who had won. Not in revenge. But in freedom. And that was the real legacy. Not the Raynor name. Not the wedding. But the empire she built with her own hands, standing tall, standing alone, and finally, standing proud.